with this cultural knowledge, it's a collective understanding, and most of it, it's not like you were formally taught. It's just something you get almost like by osmosis from growing up around a certain people group. Another part of culture is cultures teach us symbols. And remember, symbols are to try to represent a concept, idea, object, or thing with an item. And one of the greatest symbols we use is language. We have arbitrarily used symbols and sounds to represent things or ideas in the world. For example, the English word tree. We use those sounds and those letters to represent those objects growing outside with roots and branches and leaves and fruit. But it's just an arbitrary symbol. If you're from a Hispanic subculture, it's going to be an arbol, right? Arbol or tree. And those are random things we have used, but there's a collective agreement that saying arbol means that thing growing outside if you're in a Spanish-speaking country, or if you're in an English-speaking country, it's a tree, etc. Symbols. And we have lots of symbols, right? Think of religious symbols. A cross represents Christianity. A crucifix with Christ on the cross generally indicates the Roman Catholic branch of Christianity. That's just a real simple distinction. The crescent and the star represents Islam. The six-pointed star or Solomon's seal represents Judaism, or the Star of David, right? And so simple little symbols like that, just a collection of lines, can bring us into an entire worldview or way of looking at things. Even things like obscenities, right? We have different hand signs or that we can use to imply or infer a curse word or an obscene word. And I'm not going to demonstrate for you at the moment, at least not our English ones, but in some cultures, doing something like that is an obscenity, right? And it's so funny because, once again, it's like using bloody. That doesn't have the same effect as if we were in England. Just like me doing that at you or doing this to you, you're probably not going to take great offense to. But in some cultures, if you did that to someone, you might get a bop in the nose because you're, thank you for that obscene gesture, because you're making some obscene gesture that they have been conditioned in their culture to take offense at. But it's purely symbolic, right? There's nothing innately obscene by just lifting your middle finger at someone or showing them the inside of your eyelid. But that has been culturally taught that those mean obscene things, or it's meant to be offensive to you. Okay, moving on. Our cultures also teach us classifications of reality. And I think this is like super interesting. Our culture is going to tell us how to identify who is our family. And you might be like, what are you talking about? Well, in American culture, I may know second, maybe a couple third cousins, but that's pretty much as far as I think in terms of these people are my family or I'm blood related to them. In other cultures, you're literally related to everyone. Everyone in the community or village or tribe is related to you in some way. And that is just fascinating to me. And I think about that in my own church. When I go to church, even though I'm not blood related to the members, we have such a family sort of interaction that even people that aren't blood related to me, the little kids call me Uncle Fred, people my age call me Brother Fred, and older people, I look at them as like my grandparents. And even though we're not blood related, but in that subculture of my church, that is like my family, my like spiritual or church family. And so culture is going to tell you who you're related to and how. It's also going to tell you what's food. And yes, believe it or not all cultures in the world see the same things as edible. What we may see as edible in Southern California may be very different than what people see as edible in Papua New Guinea, right? Or someplace in Southeast Asia. or even Europe for that matter. And so what is considered edible varies from time and place and culture, and you're brought up being taught those things. Friends, enemies, our culture teaches that. I was brought up my whole life, I'm being taught to fear the Russians and the Chinese, just enculturated from the news, from my schools. These are the threat to America. These are the ones that are trying to end democracy. These are the ones that are trying to displace us. And that was something, I mean, how many Chinese or Russian people have I met in my life? Not a whole lot. But I have been disposed in the way I was brought up by my culture to be wary of them and to see them as a potential threat or danger. Culture tells us family, food, friends, enemies. What else? It even gives us our worldviews. Like, how do we categorize reality? Are we a theist? Are we a pantheist? Are we a materialist? We're going to be brought up from a very young age having very different ideas about what reality is. Is it purely material, physical? Is there a spiritual element? Is it a combination of the physical and the spiritual? Your culture is going to get in your head and try to tell you one of those ways is true.